Awesome. Going to be super happy to go through and check out some Dynasty Fantasy Football teams here. And just in a really good mood in general. We have some big time updates coming to the site, not only with some new features that I think people are going to love, but also we are going to be integrating with Underdog as well. That way I can finally get you all this exclusive merch. If you have that Underdog and Flock Fantasy account, we can finally hook you up with some free Underdog credit if you are both on Underdog and Flock Fantasy with promo code Flock. Gonna be super excited for all that. And of course, as always, drop a like on this bad boy, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to hop into one of these live streams, get your team broken down. If you want to get access to my Dynasty rankings, make sure you're heading over to flockfantasy.com, signing up with promo code FLOCK. You're going to get 30% off any subscription. Also with promo code FLOCK, that's how you're going to get your team on here. You can come on the live stream with me, which is what we did yesterday. Just a ton of fun stuff going on. But real quick, we had a question coming out from Colin. Says, bought the Mother Flocker tier and put my username in the join here part of the Discord. Do I just wait for someone to accept it? Yes, that's exactly what you're going to do here, my friend. So essentially, once you sign up for flockfantasy.com, join our Discord, then you're going to send your Flock Fantasy username in the join here section. It's right here on the side. You can see it over there. Just give the developers about a day. They've been a little slower. It's been taking a day in most instances now for them to connect your account on Discord to your Flock Fantasy account, just because, like I said, we have those massive updates that they've been working their butts off to get. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's dive into this team here. The first one coming out from Future Loots. My friend, thank you so much for being a member of the Flock. As always, going to be super happy to go through and check out your team. Pulling it up, it's going to be a 12-team Superflex PPR, 1.5 tight end premium. At quarterback, we are sitting with Trevor Lawrence. Down there at the Superflex, we have Aaron Rodgers. One quick thing that I want to point out is this will be a league where we're starting 10 total players. So if we're starting 10 total players, I mean, at the end of the day, depth isn't going to be the most important thing in the world, and studs aren't going to be the most important thing in the world. In my mind, it's a super good format in that it's balanced, right? It's not like we can sit here and we can say, yeah, we're just going to go studs and duds, or we're just going to go and try to manipulate this format by building around depth. No, you have to have a well-rounded roster overall. And with the quarterbacks in both Trevor Lawrence and Aaron Rodgers in the starting lineup, I think a big thing that we're banking on is this guy down here on the bench. We know Lawrence is going to be phenomenal, right? We have no questions regarding Trevor Lawrence's ability either in the short or the long term. With Rodgers, I think we kind of know what we're getting as well. We know this is a quarterback that's not really going to run the ball at all. So from a fantasy football perspective, he's probably going to be like a high-end quarterback 2, right? With not that much upside, just given the fact that fantasy scoring is a little bit different than real life play. If we want to find that upside at the quarterback position, I think it's going to have to be with Lance. If Lance were to come out and be the starting quarterback for the 49ers and have the phenomenal situation around him, and at the same time have the same rushing upside that so many people are excited about with Anthony Richardson right now, I think this could be a quarterback that would have QB1 overall upside, not number 1 overall quarterback upside, but top 12 upside. And getting that player not only as a quarterback 3, but also someone that we can cycle through with Aaron Rodgers in the starting lineup based on matchup, I think that would be a really strong point for this team. Where obviously if Lance doesn't become that and we're sitting with just Aaron Rodgers and Trevor Lawrence, then at that point, it's going to be much more difficult at the quarterback position. Going down to the picks that we're going to be operating with, we do have the 105, and it looks like most people are actually taking Jahmyr Gibbs over the top 3 QBs. They're going with Jahmyr Gibbs, usually over CJ Stroud, and you can get Stroud falling to us sometimes here down at pick 5. So if we have the ability to take CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, or Anthony Richardson, I would definitely be willing to go through and add them on, because say you grab CJ Stroud right at pick 5. Even if Lance turns out to be exactly who I've always wanted him to be, we'll still need another quarterback for the long term. Like if you're looking at Rodgers, you have a year left, maybe you have 2 years left. So yeah, I mean, we're going to need a quarterback regardless. And obviously you have the downside that Trey Lance may not become anything either. So if we wanted to look at this quarterback room a little more in depth, it definitely can be a position where we can go through and address it with pick 5 in the draft. Now, going over to running back, we have Kenneth Walker, Rachaad White in the starting lineup. Going down to the bench, I mean, we really don't have anything we could be looking with at either. So in general, I think that we have a lot of flexibility in what we could do with pick 5. Like I said, in more and more drafts now, I am seeing Jahmyr Gibbs slide up ahead of CJ Stroud, slide up possibly ahead of Bryce Young, depending on the league that you're playing in. Now, if that weren't to happen, and if instead Jahmyr Gibbs were to fall down to us at pick 5, completely fine taking Gibbs. Because if we're looking at Rachaad White and Kenneth Walker, well, yeah, I mean, Rachaad White wins the NFL draft. Kenneth Walker loses the NFL draft. We can say a couple different things. One, I no longer believe that Kenneth Walker has top 3 running back upside. Like, with Zach Charbonnet going to the Seattle Seahawks in the 2nd round, I am convinced that Charbonnet is going to have a large enough role where it limits Kenneth Walker in that it's almost impossible to see him turning into a top 3 guy at the position. With Rachaad White, I would say because of the horrible offense that he will be in with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where we can assume the Bucs are going to be a bottom 5 team in the NFL this next season, I would say that he is also extremely limited, where he is not going to have top 5 running back overall upside. So in my mind, I would be very excited to have Kenneth Walker as a running back 2. I would be very excited to have Rachaad White as a running back 3. But to have these guys as our number 1 and number 2 options and not much depth behind them, I would be 100% fine just going through and taking Gibbs at 5. So I think pick 5 is almost like the perfect spot for this team, right? Because we're fine with regardless of whatever happens. If we end up getting Gibbs, cool, we needed a running back. If we ended up getting Stroud, cool, maybe we needed a quarterback. So I think we can stay flexible in the draft and we don't necessarily have to reach for one player or another. We can just see who falls to us. Now, by far and away, the strength of this team is going to be the wide receiver position. So if you were looking at the cornerstone assets of this roster, you are going to slowly see that this is a dominant team in Dynasty, right? Because if we're projecting out the next 5 to 6 years, I mean, you are looking at Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, locked and loaded wide receiver 1s. These are the number 1 and number 2 wide receiver options in Dynasty. And if we're looking at where they're going in startup drafts, these are mid-round 1 selections in Superflex startup drafts. And who else is a mid-round 1 selection in Superflex startup drafts? Trevor Lawrence. So with this team, we have 3 first-round startup picks accumulated on this roster. So just like what Gil's saying here, these wide receivers are nuts. Definitely the reason why this team can look to contend this year and also be productive enough down the road to really not go anywhere anytime soon. We have Olave, Treylon Burks going into year 2. I think that we can say that Olave is extremely strong both in the short term and the long term. The issue is, if we're looking at Treylon Burks, we really don't know what he's going to be, right? Like, if Treylon Burks was Sky Moore, where he stayed healthy throughout his entire rookie year, where he had a great situation surrounding him and he just didn't do anything, we could write him off. We could say, yeah, it's not going to happen. Like, even if he had a strong prospect profile, you can write off someone like Sky Moore. In the case of Burks, given the injuries that he was dealing with, not only the injuries, but at the same time, just the horrible situation that you had in Tennessee, it's way too early to write off Treylon Burks. Like, Tio out here in the chat says, Treylon Burks is my sleeper. I hope I'm not alone on this. Yeah, because with Burks, he was a phenomenal prospect coming out of school, right? I mean, everybody loved him coming out of Arkansas. He checked pretty much every box that you'd look for. He broke out as a freshman, dominated as a sophomore, declared as a junior, went round 1 in the NFL draft. He flashed some ability in year 1. What you're really hoping for, or what you're really hoping not to see, is a Treylon Burks. Is a Corey Davis, Treylon Burks type situation. But I think that with Burks, I'd be very happy if he was like our wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 with the context of this team. We even have some quality depth options, right? We have Elijah Moore. We have Zay Jones. So we're going to be able to field the starting lineup at wide receiver pretty good regardless. I mean, we have James says Burks looked good when he had the ball. And Avon says, I just joined. That team is absolutely insane. Yeah, going over to tight end, I mean, we're currently sitting with Dalton Schultz down there on the bench. I mean, we have Trey McBride. So not too excited at tight ends. It's not like we have to start 2 of these guys, though. So it's not like an extreme tight end premium format. I think we're just fine here. Going down to what we can be doing with these rookie picks, though, I think we are in an interesting spot. So what I really like to see is we still have our 2024 first rounder. So we're going to have some ammo to play with during the season if we really want to contend this next year. Like I already discussed, I think 105, we're going to be looking at either a quarterback. If like CJ Stroud were to fall, I think he fits this roster nicely. I think 105, if instead Stroud goes and we're looking at Jahmyr Gibbs, perfect. We could use a running back 1 here, slide Walker down to running back 2, slide Rachaad White down to running back 3. 109, I was initially thinking, you know what, maybe this was a team that if we go Stroud with at 5, we could really talk ourselves into going maybe with the Zach Charbonnet and reaching on a running back there. In my mind, I think that taking Zay Flowers, who should be the 109, right? This is with the assumption that the top 8 guys go off the board. You can't take Johnston. You can't take Addison. I think Zay Flowers maybe wouldn't be the worst pick, in that if we were looking at this team, like we already discussed, while Burks has upside, while Kadarius Toney has upside, while Elijah Moore has upside, these guys aren't for sure things. It's not like we can just for sure say, yeah, these will be players we can confidently start this next year. So this is a team that could look to add in some wide receiver depth if we really wanted to. Going over to the 205, I think you'll be in a position where, with this being a tight end premium format, if Michael Mayer were to fall to us at the 205, I'm going to be completely fine going through and taking Michael Mayer there. I mean, maybe he goes a little bit early because it is 1.5 points per reception for the tight end position, but maybe you wanted to go ahead and take a Condre Miller. Maybe instead you wanted to go take a Devon A-Chain. Maybe you want to take Roshan Johnson and try to build up some wide receiver depth and just throw a dart at one of those round 2 running backs to see if we can, just get someone startable this next year, as we really don't have a lot of depth at the position. But in general, I really like this team. I think we go into this season with the plan to contend with how well this roster is built top to bottom. And then one thing that I'd be fine doing, not right now, I think it's a very bad idea for anybody to do this right now, but once we get confirmation that this team is a contender and you're looking at the team and you're going, hell, Mason, man, I'm 4-1, but I really need another running back, man. If I had another running back, I'm good to go. And then we can look across our league and see the team with Nick Chubb, who's maybe the running back 3 overall at the time. And if he's rebuilding, if he needs to tear it down, then we can go through and we can say, hey, man, I'll give you our 2024 first for Nick Chubb and push to contend then. But just make sure we're waiting to make that move until the actual start of the season so we can see, A, what players are healthy, B, what players are producing, C, get the confirmation that we are actually contending before we look to do anything like that. But thank you so much, my friend. I really do appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day. And as always, if there's anything that I can do for you, do not hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. I'll be super happy to help you out in any way that I can. Thank you so much for everything. But let's go ahead and actually let me pull this up real quick. Justin says, just join the flock. Mother Flocker tier, what's next? Thank you so much, my man. If you signed up to flockfantasy.com with promo code flock, so join the Discord. In the Discord, you'll see over here under the setup tab, the join here little section. So what you're going to do is just click there, send your Flock Fantasy username in the join here, then give the developers about a day to link your Flock Fantasy username with your Discord username. That way you can unlock all the chats, right? That's why you can have access to my chats, Fantasyland's chats, everybody's. And then you also get access to my roster submissions, where if you want me to break down your team, then you just go ahead and send it there, my friend. But let's go ahead and let's dive into Spencer's team. And actually, real quick, I know I'm being annoying. I know everybody's already on Underdog Fantasy. If you're not, go sign up. That way you can get some exclusive merch next week if you're on flockfantasy.com. But right now, they actually have a free bet. I just have to make sure that we're pointing this out to y'all. Free bet on LeBron James. Make sure you're going ahead and taking advantage of it. Now, let's go ahead and let's dive into our next one. And, oh, God, I'm all over the place. Promo code FLOCK, of course, if you're not already on Underdog. But this next one, Spencer says, I've been really enjoying the roster breakdowns from you. Great content. Going into the second season, I somehow got last place, so my pick is the 101, and the second first is the 109. 12-team half PPR, 1 quarterback format. Been trying to shop Darren Waller or Evan Ingram and Kyler Murray or Deshaun Watson, but no luck so far. Very interested on what moves you think we should be making. Thank you for taking the time to look at this. No, thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the flock. First thing that I want to be pulling up with this roster, not going to be the players that are actually on it, but instead the league settings that we are playing with. A big thing that we need to be pointing out is how shallow this Dynasty League is, right? Where we are going to be starting 1 quarterback, we're going to be starting 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. So if we're looking at this, and we have a total of 7 starters. Studs and duds, studs and duds, studs and duds. A player like Deontay Johnson will never matter. A player like Brandon Ayuk really is not going to matter. It's sad to say, but those depth wide receivers are guys I will be quick to throw in a deal, especially when we're looking at this bench, right? Where we're going to be having 6 options on the bench. I'm sorry to say this, my friend. This isn't really a dynasty league. And I know maybe we're an ass to say it, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page. I want to make sure that we have the same mindset. This is I don't want to say redraft league. It's a keeper league, okay? We can't be taking guys like Sky Moore. In this year's draft, you can't be taking Jaden Reed. You can't be taking Rashee Rice. You can't be taking Kondre Miller, thinking I'm very excited about what they're going to do in 2024. I understand that we have 2 taxi squad spots, but at the end of the day, if we only have a total of about 13 to 15 bench spots, if we're including the taxi squad here, you would have to cut those players way before they can turn into anything. So the only thing we care about really is trying to make 2-for-1 deals, 3-for-1 deals to get upgrades in the starting lineup. Now, with all that being said, it looks like this team's in a phenomenal situation, right? It's a 12-teamer where if we go top to bottom, quarterback, hell yes. We have Lawrence, we have Watson, we have Kyler. Now, I completely understand where you're saying, Mason, I'm trying to sell Watson, I'm trying to sell Kyler, but I'm not getting anything for these guys. I completely understand why, because if it's a 12-team one quarterback format with this shallow of a starting lineup, there aren't going to be too many people in general that could go out of their way and trade for one of these players, right? So when we are selling Kyler Murray, when we are selling Deshaun Watson in this format, you are going to have to sell for pennies on the dollar. You have no other option either. And your league mates know that you have no other option, because if we have these rookie picks coming in and we're going to have to go through and add them onto our roster, we're going to have to cut some of these players, and we're trying to figure out who we can cut here. Even if you wanted to go through and throw these rookies on the taxi squad, hell, you're going to have to move Jameson Williams to the starting lineup, right? Or I'm sorry, to the bench. So if we're looking to make a trade, in my mind, the easiest thing to do is to package one of Deshaun Watson or Kyler Murray. To be honest with you, my man, I would literally just go and approach owners and say, who do you prefer? Take either one, okay? And try to move Deshaun Watson and Kyler in a package to get a rookie that we can be very excited about this next year. So if we would be able to move, say, Deshaun Watson, that 109 that we have, and Jameson Williams, and get back the 103, the 102, I would love it. I mean, hell, I would be willing to throw in, a third rounder as well, whatever that third rounder is. I think that's the 301. And maybe it sounds like we're, quote unquote, overpaying on the surface. If we go through, we sell the 109, Jameson Williams, Deshaun Watson, our 301, and get back the 103. Maybe it sounds like it's a slight overpay, but at the end of the day, when we're essentially going to have to cut these guys off the bench almost regardless, you're going to go from getting no value from them to then being able to turn it, the 109, who maybe is Kondre Miller, Devon Achane in a one quarterback format, into Jackson Smith and Jigba, into Jahmyr Gibbs. That's the type of play we're looking to make. If they want us to throw a tight end into this deal, let's go ahead and let's do that as well. If they want Darren Waller, if they want Evan Ingram, take them. Buy. I need the roster space, right? Because also a big thing is, you would be at an advantage going into the season if we had a couple roster spots that are open that we can go through and play around with, right? Because if we're going to go through and look at this starting lineup, it's a great team. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the actual players. I think we're extremely strong top to bottom. Obviously, Javonte Williams has some question marks, but Bijan Robinson, Najee Harris, running back 1, running back 2 is monstrous. Higgins, Waddle, Garrett Wilson, wide receiver, is nasty. Tight end, the number 1 guy in Dynasty at the position in Kyle Pitts, phenomenal. Like, it's a great team. It's just more so about having the strategy going into the season. What I would love is just one roster spot down there on the bench, right? That we can plan on saying, this is going to be our waiver wire spot. Every week, we are going to drop whoever we don't like, and we are going to go get the newest, hottest pickup off the waiver wire. Because in a format that this is this shallow, you are going to have phenomenal waiver wire options during the season as well, where if we keep with this same plan, right, and we have the 101, we have the 109, we have Jameson Williams, and we're having to go through and we're having to make roster spots. Say we cut Rashad Penny. Say we're able to trade off Deshaun Watson, and we open up 2 roster spots, and we keep the 109 on the taxi squad, right? So that's like not going too hard into making these 2-for-1, 3-for-1 deals. It's kind of doing it halfway, just doing what we need to. Then at that point, say we're looking at Javonte Williams, Kyler Murray, Jameson Williams, Kadarius Toney, Darren Waller, Evan Ingram on this bench, and we can't cut anybody. We can't make any waiver wire moves. It will strongly limit our potential to find free value during the season. So I just want to reiterate, every move that I am doing, I am trying to make a 2-for-1 deal. I'm trying to get the slightly better piece. In this kind of format, I would be perfectly fine going through and trading someone 3 dimes for a quarter. If I can give them 3 dimes for a quarter or 3 nickels for a dime, please let me do that, because then we can go straight to the waiver wire and we can backfill someone we're excited about. So like I was already discussing, some of the ideas that we would have would be possibly to go through and package together one of the quarterbacks, the 109, Jameson Williams or Kadarius Toney or a tight end, and go get the 103, go get the 102. Just go get a much better piece. And maybe that's too much for us to do in one trade, right? So maybe instead you're going, Mason, I can't pull that off. Maybe instead we can look to trade Deshaun Watson in the 109 and get back the 105, right? And then just get halfway there. And then afterwards, we're sitting there with the 105 and we can go, okay, well, let me trade the 105 and Jameson Williams and go get the 103. And then at that point, we already did the deal. We got 2 open roster spots. We actually turned the 109 from a player that is not going to make a difference in this format to a player we can be very excited about. That's the name of the game here in this entire format. I mean, it's a great, great team, my friend. I don't want to take that. I don't want to take anything away from how good the players are on the roster. It's more so just, I don't like the format. We need to be trying to optimize for it. 2-for-1 deals, 3-for-1 deals. Let's do it. But thank you again so much for being a member of the flock, my man. Let's go over to BC. Our next flock member says, new flock member, 10-team Superflex PPR, full point tight end premium, 1 point catch bonus for running back, rebuilding team who's traded away most of our veterans for picks. Would love some help on what moves we should be looking to make to build a dynasty. Fine with either a YouTube video or a podcast. Thank you, my man. Let me go ahead and let me pull up the league settings that we are going to have here just so we can all be on the same board. Okay, so quarterback, we have a massive bonus, 50-yard passing touchdown bonus. So we have just massive bonuses with this scoring. That's going to be the only thing that we have to be looking at primarily, outside of it's going to be tiered PPR in a way where we are going to be incentivized to go with running backs over wide receivers in the flex spot. Specifically, this is a league where you don't want Damian Harris. Damian Harris is garbage in this format. Just think of any running back that's not going to catch the ball to the backfield. Throw them in the dumpster. I could not care less about them. In this format, just give me someone who's going to rack up receptions. Give me Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs in this format is a straight up cheat code. If we are getting 2 points per reception for the running back position, 1.5 points per reception for wide receiver, and 2 points for tight end, we are going to be highly incentivized to go through and try to fill our starting lineup with as many passing down running backs as we possibly can. But I'm assuming we won't have too many veterans here, and instead we're just going to be looking at a whole lot of rookie picks. But let's go ahead and let's pull this up. Quarterback, we're going to be sitting with Lamar Jackson as well as Jared Goff in the starting lineup. We have Trey Lance down there as our quarterback 3. So very similar to a team that we looked at the very beginning of this live stream, where, I mean, you have the guy that we can feel very comfortable about as the elite level option at the very top. And then with our QB2, QB3 combo, we have like the security where, you know, with Jared Goff, he is going to be a starting quarterback this next year. You will be able to start him, but at the end of the day, I mean, you're not really going to be able to be excited about any upside, right? Like, it's never like we can sit here and we can say Jared Goff can turn into a top 5 quarterback in fantasy. It's just not possible. But with Trey Lance, on the other hand, you don't have that security. We don't know what the situation is going to be like this next year, but he does have the elite level ceiling given the rushing upside and the possibility of elite weapons in San Francisco surrounding him. Now, going over to running back, this is the position we are trying to build around. Specifically with passing down options, which it looks like we've already done a great job. ETN, Ramondre Stevenson in the starting lineup. We have David Montgomery down there in the flex spot. Nobody on the bench. Now, going down to the picks that we have, the 102 is going to be very, very interesting to talk about. We'll get to that in just 1 second. In general, however, David Montgomery is going to be a running back that I would look to go ahead and sell. I mean, with David Montgomery, there's a lot of excitement for a couple of different reasons. One, he's going to a role that led to the most rushing touchdowns in the NFL last year. 2, I mean, you're kind of replacing Jamal Williams with just that younger version. not only the younger version, but at the same time, I mean, hell, David Montgomery can catch the ball, right? It's not like David Montgomery is going to be a phenomenal pass catcher, but he's capable of doing so. It's not going to be like Jahmyr Gibbs, of course, but hell, he can pick up 30 receptions. It's entirely possible. But with Gibbs going over to Detroit and with how good of a receiver Jahmyr Gibbs is, and with Jahmyr Gibbs possibly playing in the slot, in my mind, I think Montgomery is going to be better for a regular fantasy football format rather than a league where you are getting 2 points per reception for the running back position. Like, let me go ahead and pull up my rankings on flockfantasy.com real quick, just so I can give you an idea in general of where we have David Montgomery, and in my mind, a running back that maybe make a little more sense for this kind of format in particular. Okay, sorry, just give me one second. I want to make sure that we're giving some actual names that we could be looking at. Jasmine says Lance also threw 28 touchdowns to 0 interceptions when he rushed for 1,100 yards and 14 touchdowns as a sophomore. Damn legendary. Yeah, I mean, Jasmine, you don't have to hype me up over Trey Lance any more than I already am. I'm probably a little too hyped up on Trey Lance as is. But let's go ahead and let's pull up the running back rankings on flockfantasy.com. I will look at both my rankings as well as the overall rankings on the site to give you an idea of where David Montgomery is. And I know you're on flockfantasy.com. I just more so want to do this out loud so we can talk through it. So, like, for instance, David Montgomery on the site has an average ADP of 104. I actually have him at 103. A running back that I would look to sell David Montgomery for in this format would actually be someone like Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones going directly behind him. I think that could make a lot of sense if we were a rebuilding roster, right? And the thing is, if we were looking at David Montgomery, if you want to say, well, Mason, I'm not going to be playing for 2023. If you're not playing for 2023, then we have no business with Montgomery on our roster anyway. And we should look to go ahead and Luis should look to sell for almost anything, right? So in my mind, if we could sell David Montgomery for Aaron Jones, if you were looking to contend this next year, I think that'd make a lot of sense in a format where we're getting 2 points per reception for the running back position. Now, going over to wide receiver, we have Deebo Samuel, Jalen Waddle, Chris Godwin, and then going down to the bench, I mean, we have Treylon Burks. So in general, wide receiver, I mean, we are kind of built around some win now assets. Like, all these guys should be productive this next year. And this is making me think that this is a team where we should begin thinking about trying to win in 2023. We have a phenomenal tight end for the long term, but also a pretty good option in the short term in Kyle Pitts. And going over to the rookie picks, this is where things get very interesting, right? Because I feel like we are going to be put in an extremely difficult position where I would love to get Jahmyr Gibbs in this format. If we are looking at Jahmyr Gibbs, where you're getting 2 points per reception for the running back position, this is going to be a running back that I think can win a league in his own right. I think Jahmyr Gibbs could come in early on, and I think Gibbs could see 90 targets out of the backfield for the Detroit Lions. I think that's entirely possible for year one. At the same time, it's not like this team's guaranteed that quarterback job security. I mean, we have Goff, Lance, QB2, QB3. So Anthony Richardson is also a player that could make a real difference for this team in particular. So I feel like we are put in an extremely difficult position in trying to figure out what we should be doing with pick 2 here, in that there are a couple different things that we could possibly try to do. I saw someone else in another live stream manage to trade the 102 and a second rounder for the 104, 105, one of those picks, and a first rounder. If we could approach the owner of pick 4, the owner of pick 5, and say, hey man, I'll give you the 102 for the 104 and your 2024 first, and I'll also throw in my 2024 second, right? Or hey man, I'll give you the 102 and my 2024 second for your 105 and your 2024 first. I would really like that move. And then I feel like at the 104, 105, there we could comfortably pick Jahmyr Gibbs. If we aren't getting Gibbs, we'll be getting another quarterback that's inside that top tier of 3. We'll be happy with what we're getting regardless. And we'll also be picking up additional future draft capital. Now, 107 is also going to be a very difficult spot, Because 107, like I've already discussed, we really want to be building around running back if we can in this format, but we're going to be boxed out of the guys that we really want to get to. So 107, what I would really like to do is I would like to move up one pick, to be honest with you. If I can move up from the 107 to the 106, that way we can lock ourselves in either Jackson Smith-Njigba or Jahmyr Gibbs. I think that'd be great. I would be willing to go through and trade the 203 and 302 to get it done. Like if we could go through and trade pick 7, the 203, and the 302 to get to pick 6 and get Jackson Smith-Njigba, I would love that kind of move. Because one thing that we have to discuss as well is while this team does have a deeper bench, the starting lineup's pretty shallow. I mean, the starting lineup, you're only going to be starting 9 guys here. You only have 1 flex. So I don't feel like we have to be building around too much depth, especially whenever we are looking at what we have in 2024. In my mind, this is why I think that this team can afford to be competitive this next year, because we have 4 2024 first rounders. I don't necessarily think that these are going to be picks that we're looking to go through and sell right now, but I think these are going to be selections that if we really wanted to, we could look to wait until the beginning of the season, look at what options are actually producing, what options are healthy, what this team needs. And then at that point, look to go through and sell a 2024 first and possibly bring in, I mean, hell, what I know this sounds crazy at the time, right? Because right now, this is a trade that you probably can't do. But I'm telling you, we see it every single year. If like Christian McCaffrey were to go down due to injury, or I'm sorry, if the Christian McCaffrey owner sees another significant player go down due to injury, and we're sitting in week 5 and they're 1-4 and they have no hopes to contend this next year, and you're sitting with 4 2024 first round picks and they don't have many options of where they can go to, they're going to have to approach you to sell Christian McCaffrey, because CMC will 100% be worth less next offseason than he currently is. And then at that point, you could look to go through and you could look to sell a 2024 first and second and go get CMC, right? Like there are so many different moves that we can make during the season to really just put us over the top, that the only thing I think we have to do right now is put ourselves in the position where we are right there in the mix at the beginning of the year, get a better feel of our overall roster and the landscape of what's happening in fantasy football leagues at that point, and then strike and make a move at the beginning of the season. But thank you again so much, my friend, for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. Really hope that this was able to help you out. Really hope you're able to get something from it. And as always, my man, if there's anything that I can do for you, do not hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. I'd be super happy to help you out in any way that I can. But let's go ahead and let's dive into our next team. This one coming out from Britain. He sends us 2 different teams here, so we're going to be super brief with how we look at both these rosters. We'll look at both of them. We'll just go top-level view on each one. So thank you, my man, for being a member of the flock. Says this is my fun league. Took it over the last place guy 2 years ago and finally feel like the squad is shaping up. Got a bit of work to do at wide receiver, but taking Bijan at the 101 will firm up our running back room. Hoping JSN falls to us at the 105, but if he's not there and Gibbs is, I don't know what my plan is. Williams being suspended really screws us early on. Okay, let's go ahead and let's pull this up. So I'm expecting us to have a decent amount to work with. So if we're looking at the running back room, I mean, the running back room is strong with or without Bijan Robinson. I mean, I like Travis Etienne and J.K. Dobbins, running back 1, running back 2. Now, of course, while Etienne may be a strong running back 1, he's a hell of a lot better running back 2 on our roster. I'd say the same thing with Dobbins. While he may be a strong running back 2, he's a hell of a lot better used as a running back 3. Deontay Foreman, running back 4. Yeah, so you're right. Bijan Robinson coming in is going to make this running back room phenomenal. Going over to quarterback, we have Deshaun Watson to Kirk Cousins. So, I mean, we have the top 10 guy in Deshaun Watson. We have some security with Tua as well as Kirk Cousins. In my mind, I never thought I would turn into like the Tua truther by any means, but I mean, at the end of the day, if we were looking at Tua last year, the man literally led the NFL in adjusted yards per pass attempt. I feel like Tua at this point maybe gets a little bit too much hate for, I don't know exactly what reason, but it is what it is. So I like the quarterback room. I mean, I definitely could use a little more youth in it, but quarterback's going to be the one position I'm fine building around some old guys. Wide receiver, yeah, we need some help here. I mean, Calvin Ridley, wide receiver 1, Jahan Dotson there at wide receiver 2. I don't even want to acknowledge Chase Claypool. And we don't really have anything beyond it outside of Jameson Williams. So yeah, you're right. We could really use some wide receiver help. We have Hawkinson, who's both an elite short-term and long-term option. Hawkinson also stacks up with Kirk Cousins for us, which is very exciting. But going down to the bench with what we're looking at, 101, 105. Okay, this is going to be a tough spot. Like you were already saying, I think the dream here is we take Jackson Smith-Njigba at pick 5. Because if we take JSN at pick 5 and we go through this roster top to bottom, then at that point, obviously Bijan Robinson coming in slides J.K. Dobbins down to a flex spot. We take Jackson Smith-Njigba, then we're able to put him in the starting lineup over Chase Claypool. Then in the long term, we get Jameson Williams for one of these flexes. I honestly feel like we would still be a player away. Like, I still don't necessarily think that we would be ready to contend and ready to roll right this second. But I think we would be closer. I think that we could get a better overall feel of what our team was at the beginning portion of the season and then make an educated decision at that point on which decision we want to be going with. I do think it is still a possibility for that decision to be rebuild and play in 2024. I know that sounds crazy. This team is coming along nicely, but just say we get to the beginning of the year, right? And Bijan Robinson, high ankle sprain. Jackson Smith-Njigba not producing early on his rookie season. Completely possible on both fronts. Then if we're looking at this team and Jameson Williams is suspended, this team has really no shot to contend with this starting lineup. So if we get to the conclusion where you're sitting at 1-3 and you're going, Mason, you know what, man? I mean, I'm dealing with some injuries. I just can't contend this next year. Then at that point, we could look to go through and we could look to sell some veteran assets. We can throw Calvin Ridley on the block, see if we can get a 2024 first rounder in return for him. Throw Dobbins on the block, see if we can get a 2024 first in return for him. And try to accumulate those future picks for when our rookies in this year's class are really hitting their stride. And at the same time, if we were to burn it down and get Caleb Williams with the 101 in 2024, then at that point, we'd immediately be able to add in another round 1 start at pick caliber player with this roster. I think that is a strong possibility, but it's also a strong possibility if we were to take JSN, Bijan Robinson, that this starting lineup fills out, that we stay healthy, that we're 4 weeks into the season, we're sitting at 2-2, we're sitting at 3-1, about to get Jameson Williams back in. And then at that point, we could possibly look to sell our 2024 first and actually get that additional piece that we really need to make that push forward. So overall, I like the team. There's not too much I can be saying with it. Maybe a trade that we could look to make if you really wanted to say, here's a hypothetical. And I think this could maybe help out this team. Say Jackson Smith-Njigba goes before pick 5, CJ Stroud falls to 5, and you're like, man, I don't need to do anything with CJ Stroud. I don't need Jahmyr Gibbs here. If you wanted to trade pick 5 and move back in the draft and get another wide receiver that we're excited about, I think that could be a great move. With this league, how we're lacking depth overall, if we could trade pick 5 and in return get back, say, pick 8, and then another wide receiver we're confident in starting each and every week, maybe move back from 5 to 8 and get back. I mean, hell, we could get a lot considering the teardrop, especially if, say, CJ Stroud were to fall there and we're going to be getting Quentin Johnston in return. Let me look up my wide receiver rankings on flogfantasy.com and I can tell you what range we'd be looking at. In terms of the second piece that we would want added on, I'd be looking at like the high-end wide receiver 3s. I'd be looking at trying to get like Brandon Ayuk, Treylon Burks, Zay Flowers, DJ Moore. Like if we can maybe move like the 105 and get back like the 108 and Brandon Ayuk, I think that could make a lot of sense for this build with this team in particular. But of course, that's under the assumption that Jackson Smith-Njigba does not fall. I think we are wanting JSN to fall. But let's go ahead and let's check out this next team here. This one going to be our main league. Finished first 2 years ago and third last year. We have the 108 and 110. Debating on using one or both of the picks to trade up for Bijan or Gibbs. Wouldn't give too much for him since I'm not completely sold on his durability due to size. Okay. So in general, I'd say if we're rolling with pick 8 here, if we can trade pick 8 and pick 10 and get back either one of those running backs, hell yes. I would sell pick 8 and pick 10 for Bijan. I'd sell pick 8 and pick 10 for Jahmyr Gibbs in a heartbeat. looking at this roster, looks like we're pretty damn old here, right? I mean, this is a team where we are looking to contend this next year, but maybe in 2024, we're not that strong. I mean, right now we have Dak, Tua at quarterback. We have Jordan Love down there, so completely fine at QB. Running back, we have Swift, Derrick Henry. I mean, we just put out that article on flockfantasy.com laying out why we should be selling DeAndre Swift and have a video on the channel about that as well. I mean, but in general, running back, I mean, we're probably going to be fine for the production this year, just a difficult spot long-term. We don't have much depth. Wide receiver, we're in a great spot this season. We don't have much depth. We have George Pickens down there on the bench. We have nobody that we can be looking at either. So this is a team that also lacks depth, but this is a team where we should really be trying to push in to win this season. So to be honest with you, my friend, I don't necessarily think that the best thing we need to be doing this next year, the best thing that we should be doing right now is packaging up, right? While I do agree that if we can sell the 108 and 110 and go get the 101, we do it in a heartbeat. You're not going to be able to. If we were to do this, we'd be getting Jahmyr Gibbs in return. And in my mind, I don't necessarily think that'd be the best thing for this team when this team, above all else, in my mind, just needs some depth added in. Like we have Deontay Foreman in the starting lineup right now. I mean, this is a team that we need to be building, adding multiple starters. So what I actually like a little bit more is maybe taking Quentin Johnston at pick 8, seeing if we can trade pick 10 and a small piece and get to pick 7. Like maybe you have a Sam Howell truther, right? If we can trade Sam Howell and pick 10 and get to pick 7, sign me up. That way we can take Jordan Addison and Quentin Johnston, because I think that could help us honestly contend in the short term and then have some cornerstone assets to build around in the long term as well. But I think that's all we have for your team. Again, thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. Really do appreciate you. Really hope that you were able to get something from it and was able to help you out in some way. And as always, if there's anything I can do for you, you know where to reach me, my man. Just shoot me a DM on Discord. But I think that's all we're going to have with this live stream. Again, thank you so much, everybody. Real quick, I know everybody here is pretty much already on Underdog, so just make sure you are going and taking advantage of the free LeBron bet that they have for tomorrow night. Should be live right now on Underdog. And if you're not on Underdog already, we're going to be drafting over 700 teams there this offseason. Use promo code FLOCK. Also, you get exclusive merch if you're a member of flockfantasy.com and Underdog next week. Get some also bonus credits in your Underdog account if you use promo code FLOCK and you're on flockfantasy.com. But I think that's all I have for you. Really do appreciate y'all. Really hope you have a great day. And yeah, really hope we get to see you with the video / live stream tomorrow.